right, now look, today I'm finna show y'all how I make macaroni or gratin. Now this is a Haitian macaroni and cheese, and baby, it is everything.
All right, so let's go over some of the ingredients. So you're going to need evaporated milk. Now this is 17 fluid ounces. I have 2 of them. I always like to have 2 just in case I need to kind of thin out the cheese sauce. To season up my ground beef, I'm going to be using the Perfect Total seasoning. I'm going to be using some parsley, smoked paprika, onion powder, and garlic powder. I'm also going to be adding in about a half a pack of sazon. This is the pasta that I'm going to be using today, just some penne. I have about 4 tablespoons of some room temperature unsalted butter. And then, of course, you've got to have that épice. Now, this, of course, I made back on September the 6th, but I freeze it and then I take it out whenever I need it. So I always like to have this in stock. For my cheeses, I'm going to be using Gouda, Colby Jack cheese, Gruyere cheese. I have 2 8-ounce blocks of sharp cheddar cheese, and Laughing Cow. For my veggies, I'm going to be using 1 red bell pepper, 1 green bell pepper, about a half a cup of some minced onion. And then in the cheese sauce, I like to kind of steep in 1 pepper, so I'm going to be using 1 habanero. And now let's have a discussion about the protein. Now, in all of my research of seeing how you make this dish, you can swap it out with whatever you want. Some people like to do it with Spam. Some people like to do it with ham. Some people do it with ground beef. And some people do combinations, or they just leave out the protein completely and they just do the noodles and cheese. Today, I'm going to be doing a combination. So I have 8 ounces of some diced ham here. And then I will also be using 16 ounces of some grass-fed ground beef. We're also going to need some yellow mustard and about a tablespoon or so of some mayo. Now, you see that? You see that? You see that? Don't ask me for the damn ingredient list. Come on, child. First things first, let's go ahead and get our pasta cooked off. I'm going to add this to a pot of heavily salted water with kosher salt, and I'm going to cook this to al dente. Do not overcook this, or your macaroni is just going to become slimy, and you just don't want that. Now, while I'm waiting for my pasta to cook, I'm going to go on ahead and grate down all of my cheeses. You don't have to worry about grating down the Laughing Cow. That's not necessary. But I am going to grate down all of the rest of this. But y'all don't need to sit here and watch me do that. But just go on ahead and make sure that you grate all of your cheese. And if you can, definitely get it like this. Try not to get the pre-shredded stuff. But look, I understand times are hard. Cheese is expensive. That's the reason why, you know, making this type of stuff, you can only do this like a few times a year, honey, because it's just not cheap, child. So I get it. So just do what you got to do. And just know that this first block of cheddar cheese that I'm shredding down right now, I'm actually going to sit in a bowl separately to the side, because this is what I'm going to use to top off the macaroni. So I'm going to sit this one to the side. Meanwhile, the rest of this will all be mixed together in one bowl. And just in case anybody was wondering, yes, it has been 3 months and 3 days since I've been grating this damn cheese. It does take that long, because my God. Alrighty, you guys, so now that I have all of my cheese prepped, I've also gone on ahead and added in the 4 cubes of the Laughing Cow cheese. I can now set the cheese to the side, and we can start to work on chopping up the veggies. And I'm not doing anything fancy with these. I'm just breaking these down to a mince. And like I said, luckily, I don't really have to do anything as far as the onions are concerned, because those are already chopped. So I'm just going to cut these all down so that it can be about the same size as the onions. You do not want gigantic chunks of green bell pepper and onions in this. I mean, I guess you could if you want to, but I'm not about that life. I want mine nice and small. And just letting you guys know, the only reason why I'm using this entire green bell pepper is because of how tiny it was. If you're using a really large one, then I would say don't use the whole thing. You really only want to end up with about a half a cup, maybe a full cup, but you definitely don't want to go above a full cup if you're only using about 1 pound of noodles, or it's just going to be too many peppers and onions. So I'm using anywhere between about a half a cup to 1 cup. All right, so now that I have my bell peppers prepped, I have my onions ready to go. My cheese is currently in the refrigerator, and my pasta has just finished. I have that currently draining in the sink. I am not rinsing it off. We can now go on ahead and move over to the stovetop. Alrighty, so the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to add in just a splash of oil so that I can get that ground beef starting to cook off, because I don't want to leave a lot of oil in the bottom of this when I'm starting to make the cheese sauce and stuff. So I like to make the ground beef first, drain off all that fat, and then I can continue to go on from there. And like I said, I'm working with 16 ounces of grass-fed ground beef here. Now let's go on ahead and season it up. Now remember, you are using ham in this. You're also using a lot of cheese. So be mindful of how much salt you add because the ham and the cheese itself is going to be quite salty. So don't be too heavy-handed with seasoning the ground beef. I'm going to go in starting off with some of that total seasoning just right across the top. Just like so. I'm going to add in my pack of sazon. About a teaspoon of some garlic powder. Equal amounts of the onion powder. So about a teaspoon. Just a few dashes of the smoked paprika. About 3 dashes. Just a little bit of parsley because I am who I am. And I can already tell that this ground beef is not producing a lot of oil. So I'm going to add in just another splash of my olive oil here. And now going ahead and fully cook this off. You really want to be sure that you're really mincing this down. You do not want any gigantic chunks of ground beef. You want it to be extremely minced. Now, as you guys can see, this ground beef actually did not produce that much oil, so I'm actually not going to have to take it out. And that little bit of oil that is in there is what we're going to use right now to go on ahead and cook off a nice a nice ladle full of the epis. Allow that to kind of cook off in the center for just like a minute or so. And I would really encourage you to make sure that you don't skip this step. Allowing this to kind of wake up the flavors really does make a big difference. So this has been going for about a minute or so. So now we can go on ahead and add in those green bell peppers, the red bell peppers, and the onion. And go on ahead and give all of this a mix and allow all of this to cook together. I'm also now going to go on ahead and add in those ham cubes. And I have my temperature on about a medium high. Give all of this a good mix. Do y'all see the flavor in this? Do y'all see that? And this is the reason why I like to use those little tiny cubes of ham so that everything is kind of the same bite size. That's kind of really what you want. And that's also the reason why you want to make sure that you mince down that ground beef. I'm going to turn my heat up a bit because I don't want any of this to steam. I want this to continue to fry off for about another 2 or 3 minutes. Alrighty, y'all, so once you actually start to hear the meat frying at the bottom and there's not that much water pooling at the bottom, that's when you know that this is done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove this out of the pan so that we can start to work on making the roux so that we can get the cheese sauce underway. But I like to do everything in the same pot because there's so much flavor being built in this, so I don't like to use a lot of different pots. So for right now, I'm just going to go on ahead, take all of this out, sit this in the bowl to the side. And because I want to be in control of how much oil is in this, I'm using a slotted spoon here. So that way I can make sure that I stay in control of how much oil is in it because, you know, cheese also releases a lot of oil. We're going to be adding in butter to this to make the roux. So, you know, you don't want it to be super oily. So the way to kind of stop that from happening is by using the slotted spoon during this process while you're draining out the meat. And then once I see how much oil is left in the bottom, I can then decide if I need to remove any or just leave it in there. As you guys can see, I was barely left with any oil, so that's perfect. I've now turned my temperature all the way down because I do not want this to burn. I'm going to go on ahead and add in my 4 tablespoons of unsalted room temperature butter. And we're going to be doing equal parts flour, so that'll also be 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. And what this is this is going to create a roux so that we have a nice, thick cheese sauce. Now, it's extremely important while you're at this stage that you do not stop mixing this or it will burn. Go on ahead and make sure that you have your evaporated milk ready to go because we're going to be adding that to the pot in just a few short moments. You want to allow this to cook off for roughly about a minute or so, but make sure that you're mixing it. You don't want it to get too dark. We're not making, you know, gravy for like steaks or anything like that. So just allow it to cook for about a minute or so just to cook off that raw flour taste. Alrighty, so now we're going to start to slowly add in our evaporated milk. And just go on ahead and mix that together. And now you can go on ahead and turn your heat back up. I have mine set on about a 4. Add that all in there. And I'm going to start off with just the one container, just the one 17-ounce container. And then, like I said, I always like to have a second one on standby so that when I do add the cheese to it, if I need to thin it out, I can thin it out as I'm going. But I would rather, you know, not have enough at this beginning stage and then add to it versus you ending up with a super watery cheese sauce. You don't want that. So now that this is nicely mixed in, I'm not seeing any lumps. I'm going to allow this to come up to just a very, very light simmer, and then we can start to add in our cheeses. Alrighty, so now that I can tell that this is starting to come up to a very, very light simmer and it's also starting to thicken up, I'm going to go on ahead and start to gradually add in my cheese. I do it in about 3 parts. I don't like to add it in all at once, just because I just find it's easier to kind of mix it in when you do it in 3 parts. And it doesn't have to be fully melted in between each time, but this process just kind of helps. As you can see, like it's already melting down. It just makes it easier, less of a mess. So once I start to see that it's melted down, then I just go on ahead, add in the second part. Like so. Give it a mix. And at this point, it is extremely crucial that you do not stop mixing and do not have that temperature up too high. If it starts to get too thick, like I said, that's the reason why we make sure that we have an extra one of these on the side so that we can just start to gradually add it in. And you guys will see the consistency of what I want this to be once it gets towards the end. Alrighty, now that this is just about at the consistency that I want, I have my oven now preheating to 350 degrees. I'm now gonna add in just the last little bit of liquid in here. So I've added in both of those containers total. And like I said, as soon as this cheese sauce is thin enough that I can just whisk it with, mix it with a whisk, then that's when it's done. You don't have to allow it to cook too long. Because again, you do not want this to burn. But this is looking like the perfect consistency. This is exactly what I want. And remember, I told you guys that I actually like to steep that habanero while I'm mixing up the cheese. I'm not going to take this, I'm not going to open it up. I'm not trying to cut it open. I'm just going to allow the heat to kind of pull out some of that flavor from it, but not necessarily the heat. Now, if you want it spicy, you can absolutely do that. But I just like to put it in there while I'm allowing the cheese to melt because it extracts a lot of flavor. So like I said, I like to mix everything in a giant bowl just to save myself the headache. So we can go on ahead and add in that drained cooked pasta. We can also now go on ahead and add in all of our meat, peppers, spices. My God. And of course, our delicious cheese sauce. My God, on today. We're also going to add in, I would say, about a teaspoon of mustard, not too much. And I would say about equal parts mayonnaise, not too much, just about a teaspoon. And now, give all of this a good mix. Ooh, boy. Ooh, boy. I know y'all see this. Ooh. I know y'all see this. If you want, now you can go in and taste to see if you would like to add in any additional salt and black pepper. I'm going to add in just a little bit of black pepper to mine and a pinch of coarse kosher salt. Give this a final mix, and now we can transfer it over to its final baking dish. All right, we got our final baking dish here. So now I'm going to go on ahead and just pour all of this deliciousness directly into the pot. And as you can see, I end up with the perfect amount every single time. I hope I'm doing y'all proud, people. I hope all my people from Haiti are proud of me, honey. I'm trying to do y'all justice. I did a lot of research in how to make this. And I can tell you right now, this looks like this is about to be fire. Smooth that out right across the top like so. And now we're going to top it off with that leftover sharp cheddar cheese that we reserved, and just make sure that it's covering the top. And we're going to place this in the oven, 350 degrees for about 45 minutes or so, or until the top is golden brown. And just like that, my friends, that's how you do it. As you can see, it is just absolutely stellar. It looks incredible. Golden brown on those edges. I'm going to let this bad boy sit for about 15 minutes and then we'll dig in. Alrighty, y'all. So I let this bad boy sit for about 15 minutes. Let's dig into it. Ooh. 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 Wee. Ooh. Wee. Boy. Did I do y'all proud? Boy. This looked like something serious. Ooh. baby. Okay, here we go.